Blue is an opera about a middle-class family living in Harlem, African American. The father in the family is a police officer, and they have a teenage son, and he's a political activist, much to the nervousness of his mother and father. From the perspective of the teenage son, he's living with the enemy. He doesn't quite understand why he says, and he says it in the opera, how is it possible that I would have a father who is a police officer? He derides his father, that his father could actually wear what he considers a clown suit for the white man. The audiences will see these black police officers as human beings who hurt, who love, who cry, who care, who are courageous, who are responsible, who are fathers, who are very concerned, deeply concerned about how they are perceived throughout the community. To me, the story is about what happens, what fate befalls this African American family living in Harlem, New York City, USA, at a time where black lives seem to be at a premium. And for this young man, this young teenage boy, he is a moving target in America, being an African American boy. He is an endangered species. This family just wanted to have a life and watch their son become a man, and that maybe their son will give them grandchildren, or maybe not, but that this child needed to have a full life. How will they go on? How will they be able to face a day without their son? It's how the community comes together to support them through love and loss and grief and love and survival and love.
James Dickerson. I am a photographer. I walk around Toledo. I meet, tons of people. I talk to them wherever I can because I want to preserve those things and I want to document the Black and brown experience here. A few of us went out because we just had lost like a family member, but we were in there for literally 35 minutes and a fight broke out. My girlfriend at the time actually called the police. There's this natural response when you see, a group of black people and Mexicans in a parking lot, and their instinct is so reactive. There was a tussle, and I end up, on the receiving end of tasers. So I got tasered 4 times, 2 on each side, and eventually I had my arm broken. I woke up, asking for water. And, it's like 3 a.m. at this time, and my parents luckily were there. And several black folks had died in jail due to tasers. They tried to help me to go get some water because that's all I wanted, and I collapsed in the middle of this hallway from a heart attack. My son at the time was only 30 days old, so there's the threat of not being able to see him again. That experience never improved. After that, it became tough. It was tough for me for the next 10 years or so, I would not go out anywhere. You couldn't catch me anywhere in Toledo. So that to constantly have to walk around with that fear that there is something that I may be doing, even if it's totally innocent, just walking.
Initially, I've always been involved with anti-police brutality. It was honestly like such a good experience until TPD decided to escalate and continually push their community and assault their community to the point where we did not feel safe in downtown anymore. We were here to make our voices heard, to, yes, cause a little bit of disruption because that's what protests are for. I irritated an officer with words. I wasn't violent in any way. I wasn't threatening in any way. And the officer in the turret waited until he was about 10 feet in front of me to shoot directly at my leg. And I had to figure out how to be a mom again, how to be me again. I felt so lost, trying to validate who I am, validate that I didn't deserve to be shot. I'm trying to cook, clean, care for my child, run around with her, dance like we used to, and I couldn't. If we don't hold them accountable, I don't want my daughter 20 years from now protesting the same thing, or for someone else's rights getting shot downtown because those that we put in a position of power still feel that they can do anything to their community and get away with it. I refuse to allow that to happen, so.
When I went through the police academy, I was a first-time family police officer. There's nobody in my family that's a police officer. You can go all the way back in my history. I can't find a police officer anywhere in my family. I thought about the kids of police officers that came on the department when we did, that had their dad, their uncle, their grandpa, their mother, their sister. When they left the academy, they could go home and be counseled. I said, we need to create kind of a family for people who don't have the benefit of being, a generational police officer. They had so much adversity from people around them, their friends, their family, who, didn't have a very good image of police. My comment to people who would say, why would I want to be a police officer? If you don't, who will? When you're dealing with people of color, you got to have people of color involved in your decision making, because there's some things that could happen that you have no clue about somebody's culture. We walk candidates through the process just like a dad would do his son, or an uncle would do his niece. Our focus is to get more black officers in the decision-making level of the police department.
I'm David Ross. I'm a community activist, artist, and I also work in arts administration for the Toledo Arts Commission. Behind me is bricks and rubble from a former mural being behind me, and that was supposedly struck by lightning. Myself and an artist by the name of Van Muzi. It's the home of our mural for George Floyd. What it means to community, I felt like it was just something that people would just cherish because of what happened. Him being killed and symbolizing the awareness around the racism that took place that day. Everybody came together, but the unique thing about that day, to me, was a lot of all different walks of life and races experience some of the things we go through every day as black people. Being maced and hit with pellets and stuff like that just because you voicing your opinion, you know what I mean? That type of treatment was, everybody experienced it, but we always experienced it. For me, it was trying to preserve the fact that we all came together to fight for his justice. Somebody called me and said they just blew up, they put a bomb on the mural. That's how I got it. And I calmly drove over here because when that happened, I said to myself, it don't matter if it was the earth, a lightning, or a bomb. The abuse and the verbal hatred and racism that came from this mural, might as well put a bomb on it. It don't matter what did it. Y'all wanted it to be done so bad, you know what I mean? Racial profiling shit be eliminated from the police force. And how do you explain to a kid that a situation, a traffic stop can end and them being, not around no more, them losing their life? On a police officer end, I'm just gonna say that assess your mind to make sure you actually know that every walk of life matters equally.
Dr. Marvin Whitfield. I am the CEO and founder of Blue Force Mobile Training Team, and also the CEO of Big Brothers and Big Sisters of Northwestern Ohio. I can tell you as a police officer, I can't tell you how many times I've been called to sell out. But as a person of color, I can't tell you how many times I've been profiled. You know, so I'm so used to it now, you know, getting stopped is just part of it. Police officers are most likely to be killed by people not of color versus people of color. Not saying that people not of color are a bigger threat, it's just based on the number. The data showed that a lot of these young males and females, people in the community of color, are victims themselves that put them in spaces to where they are committing certain crimes or they're over-policed. And so one thing I want to look at and research later on is from the officer's perspective, because I was self-reflected also in my space. A lot of some of my most violent confrontations hand to hand was when I was interacting with whites. Once again, not saying they're more, you know, prone to violence, there's more of them. Because my biases, my guard was down. Oh, they white, I can handle them, there's no big threat. Because sometimes when we don't perceive something as a threat, because our biases become a threat to us even more. We never see it coming. But when I have a young black male, because of my biases back then, I was always on guard. And so even just having that understanding and minimizing those biases may even save not only people of color lives who may not be committing a crime or doing anything to the threat to where their life should be taken, but also to save officers' lives.
My name is Tanasia Loudermill. I am a poet, activist, and filmmaker. But when it comes to like protests these days, I just kind of take my camera and like, you know, shoot. I saw a police car pull up to the corner at the light. I watched 2 water bottles get thrown at the cop car, and somebody went up and spray painted the back of it. Felt like within the next 30 seconds, a tank showed up and tear gas was thrown. While I was taking a video, I had to like put my camera down and in my bag, and you know, 2 ladies that I didn't know came up to me with a baking soda and water solution for me to put in my eyes to counteract the tear gas because I couldn't open them. There was a point in the video where when I was watching it back where it just goes black.
Are you on the phone?
Right now, yeah, but...
Come with us or walk with us? I mean, you want to walk this way with us?
Sure, thank you. Let me,
And from then on, it was just running, like a lot of running. With how quickly the tank and the riot cops showed up, like it was almost like they were waiting for an excuse to bring that stuff out. That's what it at least seemed like, because you know, a couple guys throw some water bottles and spray paint a cop car. Like, you know, that doesn't mean you need to tear gas and shoot bullets into crowds of, you know, hundreds of people. I hope that people can see and learn some of these experiences of interactions with police, with people of color, and be able to empathize with that if they've never gone through it themselves, you know, at least be able to use empathy and sort of put themselves in that place to see, you know, why we have the qualms with the institution of law enforcement that we do.
My name is Shirley Green. I am a retired police officer. I was a police officer with the city of Toledo for 26 years. I have a picture of my dad in my living room at home, and it's in his rookie uniform. It's his rookie police picture. And looking at some of the things that have occurred over the last years involving police officers and particularly black men, I think to myself, what would he think right now? All the work that they did, you know, himself working the street and as a member of the African American Police League, what would he think about going backwards like we are? And how do we fix that? He would think we need to figure out a way to recruit and hire more officers of color because those numbers have gone down. The work that officers of color do within police departments and out in their community is very, very important. Officers of color, black police officers, they have, which is sad, but it seems sometimes they have this additional burden to be this liaison between their police agency and the community that they came from. I think, having said that, if you talk to African American police officers, they can probably give you some pretty good ideas of how to fix things, because they see it from both sides. And if anything comes out of this, I think that's important, that to talk to African American police officers and ask them, what do you think? What do you think we can do?
I'm Crystal Harris. I am the mother of Christopher Harris. A working mom, raised 4 children by myself. I teach them just to love on everybody. Just do that saying of do unto others as you have them do unto you is so solid. Me having 3 black males, my story of raising my babies is different. A lot of my family was out here, of course, but they had this whole perimeter surrounded, cut off. They was going back and forth, they was talking, and the whole thing was my son his whole thing that he kept saying was, there's 60 cops out here with 60 guns. I have 2. And they trying to kill me for writing Jesus is black on the church. They wouldn't let me come to the front of the house, which I swear I wanted to stand so he can see me. He was going through mental illness. He was just now accepting it himself. I wanted the police to see the kind of relationship that me and my family, me and my children have, because once we come together, he calms down and he'll break down and just cry in a ball and be like, what's happening to me? Again, this is something we deal with Chris in his home, in our home all the time. The police wasn't listening to that, and they told me after 15 minutes of him being quiet and not responding to them is what made them make the decision to throw 26 bombs of tear gas in my home. And again, this one lady officer that I kept communicating with said, ma'am, it's okay. It's okay. It's just the tear gas. It's silent. Everything went silent. After that, all you hear is just ray of bullets. Just pop, pop, pop. I've heard people say that it rips your heart. I feel like my heart, like a suction cup, just said, it took my breath away. I couldn't even say anything. I couldn't do nothing. I could not protect him. I could not. A mother is supposed to protect their child. They took all my rights away from me to protect him. Because a mother know their child. It's just like having a decent day one day and the next day your whole world changed, but it's spiraling by the minute, going down. How do you grieve? How do you do anything when you got all this happened at one time and I got my kids? And I was numb to a lot of things, but I had to make decisions through everything. I had to keep the ball rolling. I had to find a roof for me and my daughter. It's so crazy, but after watching my son be killed on my front porch, my first home that I went out to buy, doors was opening, I'm going to work every day. I'm doing what they say we're supposed to do, I'm trying to build the white picket fence, trying to have, my kids go off to school, start their own families, me one day be able to see a grandchild, all of the above. When we coming up in school, we told that's the American dream. But I guess, is it for everybody or not? I live in America. I was born into this place. And why can't my family have the same opportunity if we're willing to work to get it?
Operas started telling Black stories in new ways. Blue, when it was just being written, is just about a middle-class family. The setting of the opera is contemporary right now. And it's really, there's a feeling of It's not always so friendly for young black boys, especially as they get older. And at the heart of the opera, there's let's grapple with what do we do with so many black young men, and there are also black women who are being profiled and who end up dying not from anything that they've done on their own. How do we handle this? For those of you who are brand new to opera, this is an opera I'd say come to. This, regardless of your age or your identity, you see these characters who feel like people you might just encounter in your life. You probably know a lot of these people, and they're all black. And it's amazing. It's wonderful. I'd never seen that on the stage as a black woman. I didn't realize what I had been missing. This is an opera to come to because it is right about now.
Blue is the story of a family tragedy and a national reckoning. Presented by Toledo Opera at the Valentine Theater. Tickets available by phone at 419-255-SING and online at toledoopera.org.